All right, today we got a brand new used 2004 Camry, and you know why the guy had to buy it? Because he had a nice hybrid Camry, his daughter was driving it, and somebody T-boned him. So he had to get another car, and luckily he found this 20-year-old Camry that only had like 130,000 miles on it, and he got it for $4,300, which is a great deal when you consider, hey, a new one's $31,000. This still got at least 50-60% of its life left. Just an LE, so those aren't alloy. Those are plastic hubcaps, but from far away they look perfectly fine. And yeah, people put seat covers on because this has old fabric. It's a little bit worn, but the back seats are still in really good shape, and they got huge trunks. Now, he's owned it for 7 months. He's done nothing except change the oil, and it even came with a cute little trailer. It's got a little hitch that he can pull garbage and stuff with. These engines have enough horsepower to pull little trailers. Now, under the hood, he's lucky, and he's lucky that it's a 2004 because it is the infamous 2.4-liter engine that often burns oil, but as I said, this is an 04. This one didn't have bad piston rings. It doesn't burn oil. It runs fine. Now, my grandson's is an 07 Camry, same engine, but bad piston rings. It burns a lot of oil. It still runs, but this one doesn't. So keep that in mind. If you're looking at one of these, if it's a 2007, 8, 9, you want to pull out a spark plug. If it's got carbon on it, it's burning oil, and you might say, unless you're getting it dirt cheap, why buy a car that burns oil? Even though it'll probably run. It'll burn oil, and if you live in an area that does emissions testing, eventually that ruins the catalytic converter. You have to change it and all that stuff. Now, he lives in Massachusetts. If they're over 15 years old, you don't have to do emissions testing, so you wouldn't have to worry. But see, that's another reason. If you can find a 20-year-old car, 130,000 miles is relatively low mileage. You can find a car like that, hey, you don't have to ever worry about the emissions testing in Massachusetts. But it's a good thing he doesn't live here in Rhode Island, because that's 25 years before you don't have to do an emissions test. So, I mean, I know a lot of people, they'll register their stuff in New Hampshire, where they let anybody register and they don't have any hassle with that. There's always ways around things that people can figure out, but one of the big advantages of buying a Toyota that's a really reliable car, if you live in an area like Massachusetts, after 15 years, you don't have to get the emissions testing done. Some stupid light comes on and they tell you it's going to be $1,000 to fix it. If it runs okay, you can just ignore it. Now, even back in these days in 04, Toyota knew how to undercoat these things. There's no rust going through. The paint's still in really good shape. The undercarriage is still solid. You can see it's got a really nice draw-tight hitch on it too, and that came with the whole deal. A lot of older technology is better than the new technology when it comes to longevity, right? Let's say this was an electric car. I would never buy a 20-year-old electric car. The battery's going to cost a fortune. These old things weren't made that way, and they still get decent gas mileage. I mean, it gets like 29, 30 miles a gallon on a highway. Who could complain? Now, his wife, I guess, complains it's not fast enough. It's all relative to people, right? The other day, a guy brought me a brand new Acura TLX, 350 horsepower, right? Screaming. He said, I wish it was a little faster. I said, this guy's out of his mind. This thing is faster than anything needs to be, right? These things cruise all day long at 85 miles an hour. Do you need more than that? No, you don't. Especially if you're buying used. As you can see, it's real dirty because it's from Massachusetts. That's just superficial rust. But, hey, still the original alternator. Still the original starter. Now, it's not the original battery. That's a Duralast AutoZone one, but most of the stuff's still original equipment, even though it's 20 years old, because they make them better. So here we have Camry North America 04, made in Kentucky. So, we'll do a total analysis of it, see what shape it's in. It does a basic topology scan. Doesn't do the one with 20 different things, right? But we'll see what's happening. Doing its thing, we'll look around. The dash is still good, and it's got all these little animals floating around here. That's not stock, but he's still got the stock radio. Check it out. CD and tape deck. You can play music on them. It probably still works too. 20-year-old car, what has it got? One problem with the stupid airbag system. That's it. We'll check it out, see what the stupid code is. I wouldn't trust a 20-year-old airbag. Occupant classification system fault. It's much the way that part's broken. You never expect anything to work anyways. You got a car that's 20 years old. Put on that seatbelt. That's the safest thing you can do. Well, there's really nothing wrong. We'll start her up and we'll look at the data. Go to the ECM. It's an old car, so it takes a little while for it to pop up. It's not instant like the new ones. that are like 100 times faster. Black's good, red's bad. Let's start looking at stuff here. Long-term fuel trim. Okay, it's adding 1.53% long-term, which isn't much. 35,081 miles on it. Everything so far looks pretty stable. Look at the air fuel trim. One is perfect. Oh my God, it's one or once in a while, wait a second, 0.99, it's off 1/100th of a percent. Like I say, they don't make these things like they used to. These things can just run and run and run. They don't have high pressure GDI pumps on them. They don't have turbochargers on them. They've just got solid, reliable stuff that can run forever. Now this baby was made in Kentucky and they didn't have any problems. We had a Camry station wagon that was made in Kentucky. Both of my kids learned how to drive on it. They smacked them up and they still kept running. Temperature of the automatic transmission fluid. You get a lot of information even on these old ones. At least if you have a machine like this. And as expected, the cylinder misfire counts are all 0. 20 years old, does it shake? No, it doesn't shake. And I just found out that this originally was an old man's car from Cape Cod, and then the son took it over, had it parked in his driveway, and this guy found it and bought it. That's the kind of car you want to buy. On the bumpy roads, and really? Ride's pretty good. Now, the front struts are a little worn. It's a little bouncy, but I mean, it's nothing outrageous. It's not like the steering wheel's shaking like mad. I personally would just leave it alone because it's still going pretty good. So here we go, up to the little turn. We'll take off with it. All right, that side's open. Here we go. Give it a little gas. Shift smooth. It's fast enough for me. I don't know. I guess if you're driving a V8 turbocharger, you think this is slow, but hey, doesn't seem slow to me. Still corners like a dream. If you can find an old man's car who then his son took it and didn't drive it much and sells it, these are the cars that smart people look for. Now, he didn't even want to get a car, but when his daughter got T-boned, he didn't have any choice. So, now of course, it's a 20-year-old Toyota, so the AC blows cold, the heat blows hot, the windows all roll down, everything still works on it. So what do I think? Well, I think if you can find a car like this for $4 grand, buy it. There are many old people that don't drive much, and the advantage of this, 5 years ago, they didn't have to do emissions testing in Massachusetts. Even though it's an 04, Toyota knew how to coat them so it's not rusted. Funny, before he bought this, he was looking at a Ford Edge, and it was newer. Took it to his mechanic. The guy put it in a lift. He said, "Get away from this thing. The body's ready to fall off. It's all rotting away." And it was 10 years newer than this thing was. Ford doesn't know how to make rust-proof cars. Hey, these things, they knew what they were doing. Still looks great. Still runs great. Hey, he didn't want to buy a car, but when his daughter got T-boned, this is a really good replacement. There's no arguing that. Even if you don't think you need one, if you got room for one, and somebody like this down the street is selling it, buy the stupid thing and just store it until you need it. They only made these things for a few years, 4 or 5 years. It's a Prius V wagon, and if you look at it closely, it's really kind of a hybrid version of my wife's 2007 Matrix. You know, especially the back. It looks a lot like a Matrix. It's got 4 doors, and it's got a little back. Actually, the Matrix has a little bit bigger back on it, but it's pretty much a hybrid Matrix as far as I'm concerned. Now, they've been making these things for over 25 years, the Prius line, right? They last a long time. He had a previous one, it had 200-something thousand miles. He sold that, and he bought a newer one. He bought this used, and now it's got 100,000 miles on it. Still runs perfectly fine. The main system behind this, the hybrid system, it just keeps evolving with Toyota to get better and better. Now, as we look under the hood, you see the basic, and you could hear the acorns and stuff. He lives in Maine. The squirrels are throwing things on his car, right? Now, this hybrid synergy drive, Toyota pretty much has perfected. This transmission is totally different than what you think of as a normal CVT. This costs a lot more to make, granted. These aren't cheap to make, these electronic CVT transmissions. But aside from the early ones having some problems with the generator burning out, and then people would get rid of the cars because they'd say, look, you got to replace the whole transaxle assembly, you got to pull the engine, the motor out, it's going to cost you $7,500 or more to replace it. They don't have that problem anymore. It's extremely efficient, but it doesn't have all that crap that the other CVT transmissions have, the bands, the gears that wear out, that have problems, because this is an electric motor. So they can last almost infinitely in these things. The only thing that eventually would wear out would be bearings, and Toyota makes pretty good bearings. And that's really the part that I find amazing about Toyota production. Realize this baby indeed was made in Japan. They are so well made that I've seen them with 250,000 miles. They're still going. This has got 100,000 something miles on it. Runs fine, doesn't burn any oil. His previous one he sold at 210 and it doesn't have any problems yet either. I mean, it just shows you that Toyota, they've sold millions of these things worldwide, right? They know what they're doing and they keep improving them. And I find it amusing. They've been making these things for 25 years. Prius means like the first electric mass-produced car, right? Guess what? They're still making them now. They don't do like Americans and, that stinks, throw that away, let's make something else. It doesn't work, they throw it away. They just keep improving it over time. I mean, the new ones can easily get 55 miles a gallon. He got 43 miles a gallon driving it over here because it's an older one, but he did one thing that's interesting. Now you see these beautiful alloy wheels? They're the original wheels. You don't generally see that because Toyota covered them with this plastic crazy cover because it's more aerodynamic. Truth be told, if he would put those back on, he would probably get about a mile per gallon better gas mileage because there's less wind resistance. That's why they do it. But he likes to look at these. Who really cares? If you're getting 44 miles a gallon, do you really care? Now he's changed the oil filter, and recently he had the brakes done at 100,000 miles. Regenerative braking does save a lot of wear and tear. It's a relatively heavy vehicle because of the battery and the hybrid system. You got two systems in it. Talk about a typical Toyota. Very low maintenance. He's still on the original battery here. We're gonna put my fancy scan tool and see how much is left of it. Now as we look inside, it's got a nice layout, nice armrest. You can do all kinds. You can do EV mode. Now, this isn't a plug-in, it's a regular one. So EV mode isn't going to take you very far or very fast. Once you get up to 20 something, it'll automatically turn the motor on. Now, if you get a plug-in hybrid, I've had a guy brought me a RAV4 plug-in and he said he went 55 miles on electricity alone, and that included driving 60 miles an hour on the highway. So fancy, I'll tell scan tool out here, and we'll push the button. So we've turned it on. All the lights are on, so it's going to do a topology scan. All right, while it's doing a scan, we'll start looking around. I love these cloth seats because they wear phenomenally. You can't even see wear on them, but they're super comfortable. And look at the room in the back. These V-Wagons are optimized for size. As the owner said, since they don't make anymore, if something ever happens to this, he don't know what he's going to do for his wife because she really likes the size of this thing. It looks smaller than the Matrix on the outside, but it's much bigger on the inside. The trouble codes are going to be nonsense stuff like the tire pressure monitoring system. Those things always wear out someone when they get old. He said it's been on a while. You can see data isn't received from any of them because each tire stem inside has a battery and a transmitting station. Guess what happens? Duh. The battery dies over time, right? Can you replace it? You got to take the tire apart, put a new one in, they reprogram the system. Most people are just get a tire gauge, check your pressure every once in a while. He's not going to mess with that. And the other code is the smart key. Lost communication. That happens all the time with these things. Doesn't mean anything as long as it starts. He does have an extra key, so he doesn't have to worry about that. Well, he just explained to me what happened was the other day, the key fob went dead. He put a new battery in, it worked. Well, the machine remembered it, so I erased the code, so that one won't come back. This is a hybrid car, so unlike the normal car where I'm going to show you everything about the engine, the engines on these things, this thing runs fine, doesn't burn off. What we're going to show is the hybrid system. Well, look at live data. It's even showing the engine data here, but we want to go to the electrical data. Look, no problems. Never been high, 0, 0, 0, no high. It's not having any overheating problems at all. Cool thing, check it out. It even knows the gradient of the road surface. And you can see all this electronic stuff, normal. Shows you the temperature of the motors. And that shows you why, if you do own one of these and it gets really old, you're going to have to know a guy like me who understands what all this crap means, right? With a machine like this. Because if it's got a problem, immediately we go through, and if there's codes, you look at them, but if there aren't codes, you scroll through, and if you see, okay, that temperature's in the red, you'll know, okay, why is that particular motor overheating, and you know what to check for. There is a lot of data. And now comes the interesting thing. It has the voltage for all the different blocks of batteries inside. As you can see, there are 14 of them. So they're all perfectly fine here. But if one had a problem, you could actually change the block if it went out. You wouldn't have to replace the entire battery. If you're willing to take it all apart, replace that particular block, put it all back together again, you don't necessarily have to buy the whole battery. I made videos saying, oh, I'd never buy a hybrid car. They're so complex, they cost so much to fix, blah, blah. And that was true back then. But back then, this machine didn't exist. This machine exists now. And since these are so well made, hey, a lot of times it's just a moot point. It's going down the road, it works fine, still has the original small battery, has the original big battery. There's one with 200-something thousand miles did. You really can't complain at that. I'll take it for a spin. We'll start her up. Doesn't do anything, but the green light's on, so you know. Now we're going reverse. And it's got a cute little backup camera. You can see pretty well. There goes the motor now that we're moving. Because there's two old fat guys in the car, so it needs a little more torque, you know? You can hear it humming. Okay, now it's still got the original shocks and struts. And, hey, for a small wheelbase vehicle, it still rides quite well. We're going in power mode here. He had it in eco mode. We're going to put it in power mode to see what it can do. Now realize it's basically driven by electric motors, so they do have decent torque for a small car. So it's turned itself off. Here we go. We'll step on the gas, and woo! It started to burn those tires before traction control came in. Driven by electric motors, and those motors are torquey. So they've gone a long way, and this isn't even the brand new one. The brand new one's got like 50% more torque. They really made him get some zip. And it gets better gas mileage too. It's kind of bizarre. Usually you can't have power and better gas mileage, but somehow Toyota figured that one out too. That's the thing with electric cars. Yes, they can be super, super fast, but do you need something that's super fast? Do you need a battery that big to make them go that fast? No, in this case, you got a smallish battery, a smallish engine, and it's got plenty of pickup to it, but it gets 44 miles a gallon. If you're thinking of a hybrid, maybe you don't like a Prius, maybe like a Camry, a Corolla, or a RAV4. They all come in hybrids too. Take Ford with their big mistake of making their Maverick hybrids in Mexico. They've had nothing but problems with those things, right? Oh, let's make a really high-tech hybrid new design pickup truck in Mexico. What could possibly go wrong, right? Well, all kinds of things have gone wrong and probably will continue to. They've only been out for a couple of years, and they just had another recall on them where the taillights don't work because they were made in Mexico. It's a shame they don't make them anymore. Yeah, they still make the Priuses, like I said, they said they weren't going to, but you know they're going to, because hybrid cars seem to be a lot more of the future. They're selling like hotcakes, and if the government pushes that instead of these stupid all-electric cars, let's face it, they bet on the wrong horse that's lost the race, but they're still betting on it, even though the race is kind of over, right? Unless they have a radical change in battery technology and an infrastructure. Hey, there's no range anxiety with one of these. They go a long way, 44 miles a gallon. Hey, try that with an electric car range. You could never even get close to what this thing will go. They have a lot of complex technology in them, but Toyota keeps perfecting them. They make the electric motors a little bit bigger, a little bit better, right? Well, the Americans do the exact opposite. Can we make that electric motor smaller and cheaper so we can build them cheaper? It costs money to make these things correctly. That Toyota's pretty much perfected. Well, if you want a good beater car, maybe a 98 Honda Civic is for you. I just bought it for $2,500, brought it here from New York City, but it's only got 122,000 miles. That's really low mileage when you consider how old it is. It's one of these 1.6 liter 4-cylinder engines with an automatic transmission. Basically, these things can run forever. I mean, he doesn't know any history of it, but I can tell it's lived most of its life up north because you can see all the superficial rust. Any damage that's hurting anything, but when it's like this, it probably spent most of its life in New York State. But back in the day, these things were simple. It's still fuel injected, but it is not GDI. Much simpler. It's got a distributor in it, and as you can see, it's pretty new. Someone just replaced it. They do wear out eventually. It's got a new distributor, so that's good. Oh, that's the original compressor. The AC still works, so yeah, there's a plus there. Now, Honda has sold millions of these things because they can last so long. It's Honda's version of the Toyota Corolla, the Civic and the Corolla. This is an older one, so this isn't the one that the kids are always souping up. The problem with buying a late model Civic is a lot of kids buy them, soup them up, and they're ready for the junkyard by the time you buy them used because they've beaten them all up. These were more transportation cars, and with this low mileage of 120 for all those years, there shouldn't be anything that's really worn out. Our computer will tell us that. Now somebody put this crazy FJP edition, and of course, it's got steel wheels. These are just plastic hubcaps. But other than a little rot here, you're going to get rot in the wheel wells. That's just what happens. Well, look under the car. It's still real solid. It's not all rotting away. Down here, you get a little rot. You can cut that off, do it over. But these old ones, since they're not GDI, they're not turbo, they don't have oil dilution problems. I've seen Civics with 550,000 miles, and they're still running okay. So, let's get the old computer out and check this thing out. So, in we go. Do diagnostics. See if it'll auto-detect the VIN. It may or may not. We might have to punch it in. We look around. Hey, look, the dash is still solid, no cracks. It's got a Pioneer stereo added in. The cloth seats, you're much better with cloth seats in an old car, are in good shape. A lot of room in the back. It's a 4-door. As I said, it won't scan it, so I got my phone out here. I took a picture and I'll type it in. This one starts with the 2, so it was made in Canada. Civic, 1998. As you can see, it does a basic topology scan, so here we go. Oh, this is a 4-speed automatic. They're decent transmissions. Like I say, the AC still works on this. A little loud. The fan motor's starting to go out. If you don't like the noise, you can change the fan motor. Our windows, they still all go up and down. And oh, car's got a real emergency brake like I like. None of that electronic crap. Hasn't found anything out yet, but it's real slow. Look how long it's taking to go through, because it is an old car. It's a 98. So good, it's 35% done. No code yet. Well, what do you know? Went through everything and there's no codes. Amazing on something that's almost 30 years old. So let's look at live data. Just say, it's an old car. So computers are awful slow in those days. But, hey, it's going. It'll probably take a while to come. But it came up pretty fast. Black's good, red's bad. Let's see what kind of shape this thing is in. With all this mileage and how old it is. Short-term fuel trim, 1.09, 1.05. That's not much. Good voltage. Alternator's working at 61%, because it doesn't have to. It's just idling. Fuel injector millisecond firing's good. Spark advance is good. Pretty amazed. Automatic transmission data. We'll look at the live data for the transmission. Oh, good, black, good. It's in good shape, too, so let's take it for a road test. Check it out. Even the power door locks still work. It's amazing. Like I say, it doesn't have much mileage for its age. It's only 123,000 miles. Doesn't shake when it's idling. No backup camera, of course. Extremely smooth idle for this old car. I mean, power steering still works. Now, we got this big lump here, so I'm going slow. It's a low car. We don't want to knock anything off. It still looks to me like it's got the original struts on it. Now, on these horrible roads here, we'll see what happens. Not bad. It actually rides better than my wife's Matrix. The Matrix is only 18 years old, and this is 38 years old, but still, hey, it rides better. It's kind of amazing when you think about it. These are really good transportation cars. Get up to the L corner, take it for a spin. Now, it's not a race car by any stretch of the imagination. We all know that. Got clear already. Here we go. We'll floor it. Good engine. Look how smooth it shifted gears. You only paid $2,500 for this thing and it runs like a clock. I hear a little wind whistle, but I mean, hey. Brakes have a little judder. It needs front rotors. You hit the brakes hard, I can feel a little judder, but hey, it's old. It still stops and okay. But if you wanted it perfect, you change the brake rotors and pads because they're somewhat warped. They just have a little shake to them. The transmission still shifts good. A nice loud turn signal, so old people can hear it. And look, it even has horn buttons and cruise control on. No radio controls on the steering wheel, but it's got a few buttons on it. It's still a fun, zippy little car to drive around in. An amazing car to run around as an everyday work car. Now, generally, you're going to be leery on a car like this that's pushing 30 years old and only has got like 130,000 miles on it. But this is a New York City car. People in New York City don't put that many miles in their cars, lots of them. I see many cars in New York City that don't have that many miles every year because they don't drive long distances. New York City is a relatively small place, geographic. A lot of people crammed in a small space. It's not like you're driving from Dallas to San Antonio to Houston all the time, right? You got a smaller distance to drive, and it's totally believable that's the real mileage. By how the engine runs and the transmission shifts, I can tell that's the real mileage. If it would have had 400,000 or 500,000 and somebody would have reset the speedometer or put a dash from a used car in it, it wouldn't be shifting and running like this because it still shifts and runs perfectly. Now, it's in pretty good shape except for the 2 rotten spots here, which you could Bondo off or cut the metal out, and here. It's not outrageous. The rest of the car's actually in really good shape. Still have a lot of tread on them. So if you were looking for a good commuting work car, you would not turn this baby down. Now, most places it's not that easy to find a car this old that's only got 130,000 miles, and that's nothing for a Honda engine and transmission, especially these older ones that don't have gasoline direct injection. They don't have turbochargers. They can basically run forever, and this one still runs like a clock. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.